Hello, students. Welcome to the first lesson of the 2020 BFA program in television production, the e-learning version. In this lesson, we shall be looking at the course outline for the entire semester. From now on, we will be taking them lesson by lesson as the weeks progress. And you will get to know what is expected of you in the course of the semester. And by the end of the semester, by the end of this program, you are expected to know television, the basic television system, the stages of production, the principles of TV system, the elements of television, the attributes of television, and then the TV production elements. Look at these two things, elements of television and TV production elements. We shall explain the differences in the course of the lesson. And you shall also look at the grammar or the language of film and television. We'll look at the studio and its various departments, but our concentration more will be on the TV control room, the studio floor, and the master control room. That is where the TV producer or director is most often working from. And then you will look at the people who work in television, what roles each one of them plays, both in front of the camera and behind the cameras. We'll look at producing and directing TV programs. We'll look at ideation and idea development. That is how to find ideas for TV programs, the sources of ideas for TV programs, and how to develop such ideas into effective television programs. Then we'll do the scripting, and then finally we'll look at the control room practices and directorial commands. So by the end of the semester, you should be able, the objective of this course is that by the end of the semester, you should be able to generate an idea, develop it, take it through the various developmental processes, and then do the scripting, do your casting, and plan and organize and manage your resources, including the personnel who are going to work on the program, and then sit in the control room and be able to direct your own TV program. Now, let's look at what television is. In literal terms, television can mean viewing from a distance. In technical terms, it is the transmission of picture, or if you like, visuals, and sound, or audio, to a general audience via land transmitters, cables, or the satellite. In other words, television is nothing other than the domestic reception of audiovisual messages that appear on the screen at the very moment that they are transmitted. Television works on three basic elements. That is the elements of television I was talking about. That is picture, sound, and action. Without any of these elements, there can be no effective television. Can you imagine if you tuned into a TV program? You can hear voices, but you cannot see pictures. You'll be listening to radio then. If you see pictures and you don't hear sound, it will take you a maximum of 10 or 15 minutes to switch off. And if you switch into a TV station or channel and you hear the sound, you can see visuals, but there's no action in it. It will be more or less like listening to radio whilst there is a still picture in front of you. And that is why we say that television works on these three basic elements: picture, sound, and action. Without any of these elements, you cannot talk of any effective television programming. That is what we mean by the elements of television. So if you are asked what are the elements of television, you say 1, picture, 2, sound, and 3, action. Once you have all these three, then you are watching a television program or you are doing a television program. The stages of production. The process of producing a TV program is generally divided into 3 stages. The first stage, that is the pre-production stage, includes but not limited to the idea development, the setting of goals, the writing of the program proposal, conducting production meetings, storyboarding and scripting, location scouting, gathering all equipment and supplies needed, and so on and so forth. Now, all of the stages are important in television production, but pre-production is especially important because it makes the other stages proceed that much more easily and smoothly. So, pre-production stage of television production is anything that happens between the development of the idea till the day you sit in the control room to direct the program. Everything and anything that happens before the day you sit in the production control room to direct the program is happening at the very first stage of TV production, and that is pre-production. Pre-production is in many respects another word for decision making. And you cannot avoid making decisions. You will only be postponing the inevitable. If there is anything to do before the day of production and you don't do it, when the day comes, you will have yourself to blame. Pre-production is the most important part of television production that cannot be taken for granted. If you take pre-production for granted, you are going to run into trouble on the day of the production. And we usually say that in television production, if you don't do pre-production, then it means that you are spending your time waiting to learn how to shoot on the battlefield. You cannot take the time that you are supposed to be on the battlefield to learn how to shoot a gun. You will be killed before you fire your first shot. And that happens to be the case of television production. You plan, you organize, you manage. You don't do that, and the day comes, you sit in the control room, and you are going to mess up. Now, the essence of pre-production planning is that it offers many advantages. It saves you time, your precious time, your crew's and talent's time, and the costly equipment time. It makes the shoot more smoothly. You see, when you don't do your planning well at the pre-production stage, you will be wasting your own time on the day of the shoot. You will be wasting the time of all the people you will be working with on the day of the shoot. And then the equipment, remember that the equipment that you are going to use in recording the program are paid for. And therefore, you are going to waste your time, waste the time of your crew members, and waste the time of the equipment that you have hired, and therefore the money you have used in hiring the equipment. That is why it is very, very important to do proper pre-production planning. Otherwise, you cannot do TV programming. It makes for a more focused, better executed program. It keeps you sane because it allows for you to anticipate, plan for, and deal with the problems that inevitably come up. If you do proper pre-production planning, you are able to identify potential problems and then find a way of dealing with them before they crop up. That is the reason why you have to take your pre-production planning very seriously. So what kind of planning do you need to do? Before you begin to produce a program, you must answer a number of fundamental questions regarding, one, the audience. Who am I trying to reach? What is the best way to reach this audience? What are your goals? Why am I making this production? What is the purpose of the production? What do I want my audience to think, feel, or do as a result of seeing this program? And is video the right tool for the job? Is television the right tool for the job? If television is the right tool for the job, then you go for it. Now, remember that when you do TV programming, you are targeting an audience. You are not doing the program for yourself. You are doing it for the audience at home who will be watching the program. What do you want them to feel? How do you want them to feel? What do you want them to do? How do you expect them to react to the program? When you are able to identify who the program is for and what you anticipate will happen to them and what you expect them to do, how you expect them to react to the program, then you then go ahead to plan your content. To figure what information to communicate through your program, you should do two things. Research the topic, know your material. List the most important points to get across to your audience. Then you prioritize them. Don't try to squeeze too much information into a program. Less is sometimes more. In television production, everything is timed, and therefore, for you to be able to do a program that will have the right effect that you are looking for on your audiences, you will have to know exactly what you want to communicate. Don't pack too much information to one program. It doesn't work. Sometimes there's a saying that less is more. Give just adequate information that will be enough for you to reach your audience and make the right impact. Then you decide the format. Knowing what audience you are trying to reach and what information you are trying to communicate makes it easier to figure out how to communicate that information. To do that, you need to ask yourself, what kind of form will the program take? Now you have this idea that you want to communicate to your audiences and you expect a certain reaction at the end of the day. Can you do that via a documentary? Will it be better done in a documentary form? Can you achieve these objectives that you intend to achieve? Can you get the right reaction? Can you get the right feeling from your audience by doing it as a talk show? or by covering it as a news item or a news feature? Or should you do it a live program or record it? Should you add interactive Facebook or interactive platforms so that you'll be able to interact with your viewers? Should it be a reality show? Should it be a music video? You have to plan all of this. You have to decide on this, plan it, organize it at the pre-production stage before the day comes when you will have to do the production. Now, when you do that, you are giving yourself a chance to then plan properly. And on the day when you come to the TV control room, you have your sanity intact. You are able to do the program according to how it is supposed to be, so that effectively you will be able to communicate your message in the right way to the right audiences and get the right effect. Now, the next thing you do is that you put your vision on paper. Don't take it for granted that the idea is mine, so it is in my head. I can do it, I can remember it anytime I want to do it. It doesn't work like that, because television is a collaborative activity. You do it with a lot of people, and people are not in your mind. It doesn't matter that you are going to talk to people. When you talk to them and they leave, sometimes it is easier for some crew members or some production team members to forget what you said. But if you put it on paper and everybody goes by what they have before them, they can always refer to it and come back to what they are supposed to do. And by the time you finish all your pre-production activities and come to the control room or come to the studio, all your crew members are conversant, are well-versed with whatever you are doing, because you take it one step at a time, step by step. And if you are able to coordinate your crew members very well, by the time you come to the control room, everybody would have been well-versed with the program, such that you will have a smooth sailing production and you maintain your sanity. Now, what you do is that you write a treatment. A treatment is a description of how the story or the program will look like, as in the moving pictures that we will have on the screen. Then you write the script. The script can be any length, depending upon its purpose and the amount of detail you want to include. And remember, we have just said that sometimes less is more. So don't pack too much information into the program. Otherwise, you will end up overloading your viewers with information, and you will not get the right type of information. And scripts can take any form, including a list of points to be made, questions to be asked, and or specific images to capture. Then you write a shooting script. In some literature, you see it as a short sheet. You are editing. Your editing job will be much, much more easier and go much faster if you figure out exactly what shots you need to get before you ever start the shoot. Whether you are doing the shoot on location or you are doing it in the studio, you need to have a shooting script. You need to have a short sheet so that every crew member that you are dealing with knows that these are the shots we are going to take, and from this shot we are moving to that shot. So when you sit in the control room to direct the program, it doesn't take you too much time to explain things to your crew members to be able to understand what your intention is. And this has to be done at the pre-production stage. Then you decide where you want to do the shooting. Keep in mind that while the environment of a studio shoot is generally constant and predictable, and you shall get to know why this is so, the environment of the location shoot is always variable. The studio provides air conditioning in the studio, easily controlled lighting and audio, as well as many other aspects that the producer and director can always count on. Now, look at this. When you do a program in the TV studio, there are certain things that work to your advantage. But of course, there are certain limitations as compared to if you have to do it on location. So doing a TV program, you can choose to do it in the studio or you can choose to do it on location, depending on the demands of the program. But you should be conversant with the advantages and disadvantages that you will come across when you do it in the studio and when you do it in the on location. Now look at this. If you have to do it in the studio, the advantages are that, one, there is plenty power, lighting, and audio equipment at your disposal. If one fails you, immediately you are able to replace it, and the production goes on. Now, there is a little likelihood of interruptions, and you don't have to deal with picking up and moving lots of equipment if you are doing a TV program and you are doing it in the studio. The main disadvantage about doing a TV program in the studio is that you don't get the right atmosphere. You don't get the atmosphere. The TV stage looks artificial and may not relate to program content. Sometimes, depending on how you depict the set or the setting in the studio, it can create problems. It can create credibility or believability problems for you as a TV producer. And so sometimes you look at a TV program and you think that, no, this does not actually represent the right information or the right atmosphere for this kind of topic or this kind of program that is being discussed. Now, in terms of functionality, a 3-camera setup enables you to shoot from multiple angles in one take. It can be live and interactive, and it can be creative. You can have creative options in the studio to be able to achieve things you would otherwise not be able to achieve if you were on location. The main disadvantage in terms of functionality of a program being shot in the studio is that the studio is a confined space. What you shoot, whether live or live on tape, is what you get. It's very restrictive. There are certain types of shots you cannot get if you are doing it in the studio. There are certain types of camera angles you cannot achieve if you are doing the program in the studio. And therefore, it becomes very restrictive doing a program in the studio. Otherwise, you have the luxury of using 3 cameras at the same time, giving you different image sizes at different angles. So that instead of the situation of location shoot, where you will have to go with one camera, put a camera here, do the recording, move equipment, let's move here, let's move there, put camera here. After that, you shift the camera to another position before you do it. In the studio, once you are able to do your blockings well, and the cameras are well positioned, you will be able to take all your shots, different angles, different image sizes, and as soon as you begin to record, you are switching between the different cameras and different image sizes at the same time. When you are done, you are done. There's no issue of having to move equipment to change location before you will be able to go on to do the program again. Now, in terms of time, the advantage is that little or no editing time is needed for programs shot live on tape. And it is even more so the case when you are doing a live program. And in terms of support, in-house staff are always on hand to deal with technical issues. Now, if you go on location, but what you will not have is that you may have a technician who is there with a limited amount of the resources that will be needed for the production. And so if you run into any technical problems, you are going to have to halt the production and wait for him to go back to wherever it will take him to get things fixed before you can continue. That is one of the disadvantages of being on location. But if you are in the studio, I mean, in-house studio staff are always on hand to offer technical assistance when you run into any problems. The disadvantage there is that you need a large crew, typically at least 6, some of whom must have advanced certification. You cannot do a TV program, no matter how short or how small or how big the program is. You can't do a TV program with less than 6 people, minimum. That is why it is a restriction. One of the disadvantages of doing multiple camera studio production, and when I say multiple camera studio production, I mean using more than one camera in the studio, in the TV studio, to do a program. You need a large number of people to be able to do that. And it comes at a cost. So it becomes one of the disadvantages of doing a studio program. Now, let's look at what happens in the case of a location shoot or field shoot. First of all, look at the advantages. Staging. Field footage is often more compelling, naturalistic, and related to the program content. If you are doing a program on location, and the program was meant for a certain type of environment, you go straight to that particular environment to do the program. It is more realistic, it is more naturalistic. And that is the difference between doing a program on location, that is on the field, and doing it in the studio. The disadvantage there is that there is a lot of inconvenience. You can come across a lot of inconvenience at the location. Not as controlled a setting as the studio in terms of lighting, audio, staging, and power. More likelihood of interruptions. You have to deal with picking up and moving lots of equipment and personnel from location to location. Now you go to a natural environment to do a program, and you might have to come across a lot of disruptions, a lot of frustrations. People who come around, and moving them will become a problem. You cannot move them, you can't sack them from the location, and if you leave them there, they will disrupt you over and over again. You are going to have to be moving equipment and personnel from one location to the other, even if it is supposed to be done at a particular location. You are going to have to be moving to deal with picking up and dropping of equipment and personnel from one location, from one point of the location to another. And then the lighting, the audio, the staging, and power are all things. Sometimes you go on location only to realize that you don't have lights, the power fluctuations, and all of those things, but you don't have a standby generator, and it is not a daytime program. If it is a daytime program, sometimes the difficulties you even face are changes in weather conditions. So you go on location, and then it becomes a problem for you. You could have done it in the studio with all the lightings that you need, with all the microphones that you need. Technical personnel are available to help if there's any problem. You don't have any distractions from passers-by. You don't have any distraction from people who would deliberately just come and want to frustrate your effort. When you do programs on location, you come across all of these problems. Now, in terms of functionality, The advantages of shooting in the studio is that you can shoot everywhere you want. Pre-recorded nature of the program allows you to edit it as desired. But the disadvantage there is that if you are doing live and or interactive telecast, not usually possible. Live and or interactive telecast is not usually possible. You cannot do chroma key or other special effects available with studio equipment when you are shooting on location. So the advantage of shooting on location is that you can shoot anywhere you want. You can pre-record the program and edit it later. You don't have that luxury in television production. But the disadvantage is that you can't do live and or interactive telecast. Not usually possible. The disruptions will be too much for you to bear. And you cannot do chroma key and other special effects available with studio equipment. And people. On location, generally, you need only a small number of people to work with. That is one of the advantages. But the disadvantage of shooting on location is that in terms of time, your program usually requires editing after shooting. And then in-house staff are not always on hand to deal with technical issues. That is where studio recording takes advantage over location shooting. So before you are able to do a proper TV program, you should ask yourself, where will it be better for me to do this program? Will I be better off doing it in the TV studio because of the inherent advantages I will enjoy doing it in the studio? Or if it is not possible, would I go ahead to do it in our own location? Because there are certain things I cannot achieve in the studio. All of this has to be taking place at the pre-production stage. And you must do all this planning. You must take all these decisions before the day of the shoot. You decide who is going to be on the show. You decide how much information you are going to give out, communicate, what the message is. You do all your scripting. You do all your planning. You do your organization. And you put yourself together and decide whether you are going to do it in the studio or you are going to do it on location. When you have decided, then you know how to plan yourself towards the D-Day. Well, students, that is all time will allow us for today. In this lesson, we have looked at the course structure and the demands of the program. We then looked at the concept of television and its elements. We also mentioned the 3 stages of production as far as television production is concerned, and went ahead to discuss the pre-production stage in some detail. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, or contributions, for now, don't hesitate to call me or send me a WhatsApp on 0244 724 338. 0244 724 338. But subsequently, we will have discussions on this platform, on this particular platform, the e-learning platform, the Nftp e-learning platform, or via Zoom, as the case may be. But for now, if you have any concerns, any questions, any comments or contributions, don't hesitate to send me a WhatsApp message or call me on the phone. I will always be there for you. Until then, revise your notes, do further research, and stay safe. Bye-bye.